this just in, she is back and blonder than ever. No more crazy roots for now. I will have to do them again eventually, but not right now. Right now, she's back to being blonde. Hello everybody, my name is Kristen, and welcome to my booktube channel. Thank you for clicking on today's video, showing any sort of interest in my channel. Today is Wednesday, February 1st, and that means it is time for a January reading wrap-up video. So today we're going to talk about how many books? The 5 books that I was able to read in January. Now, little disclaimer, could have potentially been more, but some stuff happened at work which, 1, stressed me out a little bit, and 2, prevented me from listening to audiobooks at the same rate that I normally would. So those factors combined led to me not being able to finish 2 of the books that were on my TBR for January. But even so, I think I did okay. I think I did decent for January. Also considering that a couple of these books are pushing 400 pages, I think I did a decent job. So we're gonna go through the books that I was able to read this month. If you follow me on Instagram or on Goodreads, then you will already know what the 5 books I have read so far in 2023 are. If you're not following me there are some convenient links in the little description box down below. You should go check it out. Follow me on either if you're interested in seeing either my day-to-day shenanigans on Instagram, or if you're just interested in what books that I'm currently reading and my progress through them. Goodreads is also down there too. So today we're going to be talking about the 5 books that I have read so far in 2023. We are coming right off the heels of January, and I am getting this to you as quickly as possible. So we're gonna have fast turnaround time for this video. So first off, let's talk about the books that I did not finish. I didn't even start Gone Girl, so that's gonna be one that I hold on to for a later time. And I did start Mel Brooks's biography, but one thing I didn't realize about his biography when I started listening to the audiobook is that there are pictures in this book that go along with it. And when I realized that, I was like, I really want to see the pictures as I'm reading. So I'm now listening to the audiobook as I read this. And yes, my bookmark is a ripped off tab from a bag of cookies, so don't judge me on that. I will literally use anything as a bookmark if it is close and semi-flat. Please don't come for me for not using a bookmark. I have a million bookmarks. It's not lack of accessibility of bookmarks. It's just, I'm just gonna use whatever is nearby. So yeah, that is the update on all about me. And so with those things out of the way, let's go ahead and get into my January reading wrap up. So we're gonna go in chronological order, beginning with the first book that I finished in 2023, and that was Lord Edgware Dies by Agatha Christie. So this one I rated 4 stars. It was fun. It was, you know, your classic Agatha Christie whodunit. As the title would suggest, Lord Edgware dies in this book, and Poirot is trying to solve the case of who is the murderer. And in the process finds out that Lord Edgware had a lot of people that potentially wanted him dead. There are many people in this story, as in most Agatha Christie books, that have a motive and would potentially want Lord Edgware to not be around anymore. And as always, it was a super fun, twisty, turny kind of ride, and it had an elaborate solution to how the murder was committed that was very interesting and never even crossed my mind. So for all those reasons, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't my favorite Agatha Christie book. My favorite Agatha Christie book isn't even a Poirot novel. It's And Then There Were None, one of her standalone ones. And that one's just so hard to beat. So far, that's my favorite one that I've read. There are a couple that are up there, but this one just wasn't super memorable other than the twist and reveal at the end. Other than that, because of the nature of the story, it kind of does just blend into the background with me with a lot of other Agatha Christie novels. But even so, I think it was still super fun. It was really short. The audiobook was like 6 hours or something like that. So it was quite short, quite easy to read, and yeah, it was fun. I need to find other words to use instead of like, it was fun. Because I'm getting tired of hearing myself describe things as fun. It was intriguing. It was a conundrum that I couldn't solve. It's not the most memorable Agatha Christie book. Even though the content was good, the actual mechanics of the story is quite similar from a formulaic standpoint. Is formulaic even a word? Sure, let's go with it. From a formulaic standpoint, it's quite similar to a lot of other Poirot mysteries. I think what sets this book apart from a lot of the other ones is that, not that the murderer didn't cross my mind, but the particular solution to how the crime was committed never crossed my mind. So I think in that it does push it a little above the average. So I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars for those reasons. Now my battery's dying, so I gotta change that. BRB. Okay. So Lord Edgware Dies was the first book that I read this year, and it's also the only one out of the 5 that I've read that I do not physically own, which I'm very proud of myself for, because I do this and I feel like so many other people do too, where I buy all these books and then I just let them sit on my shelves and I don't look at them, I don't read them, and I move on to other more exciting audiobooks and things like that. So I'm really trying to make a conscious effort this year to read books that I do already own, and that also means that I'm trying to read more physical books as well. We'll see how that goes. So the second book that I finished this year is actually one that I have now loaned to a friend. So I don't have the physical book here with me at this very moment, but it is... What's the book that I read? Home Before Dark. Wow. The second book that I finished in 2023 was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. So this book I gave a 4.75, which is fairly high, I will admit. So Home Before Dark I ended up rating 4.75 out of 5, and I gave it the 4.75 because I couldn't quite give it the full 5 marks, mostly because there were a couple of loose end type things that I didn't feel like were completely wrapped up in a satisfying way. I've read one of Riley Sager's books before. I've read Lock Every Door, which has a pretty similar vibe to it. They fundamentally differ in the plots that they have, but the overall mechanics of the story is kind of similar. Home Before Dark is about a girl named Maggie Holt who, when she was a child, lived in this notoriously creepy house in this sleepy New England town. And they live in this spooky house when Maggie is about 6 years old for a grand total of 20 days before they flee in the middle of the night in terror and end up staying at a seedy motel where her father then writes the notorious novel about the haunting of this mansion that they lived in for 20 days. And the story in Home Before Dark is told from a dual perspective, as was Lock Every Door. The chapters alternate between the experiences that are detailed in the book that Maggie's father writes and the experiences that Maggie is currently having in the home. They flee the house, and about 20 years later, Maggie's father passes away, and she finds out that he has not only kept the house, he never sold it after they fled, but he has left it to her in his will and told her never to return there. So what does Maggie do? She goes to renovate the house, of course, obviously. Like, she is a total skeptic. She doesn't believe that anything in the book that her dad wrote was true in any way, shape, or form. She thinks that he just lied to everyone in order to get this book to sell and be a success. And she takes issue with that because she is pretty much the main character in the book. She is the child who sees all of the ghosts, who has all of the encounters, and she remembers absolutely none of it as an adult. So you can kind of see how that would get annoying, people coming up and being like, did you really see ghosts as a kid? And she's just like, I don't think so, like, I don't remember. The whole book pretty much takes place inside of this house while Maggie is renovating it, and the events that happen to her while she's renovating the house coincide with events that happen in the book, so it's a cool parallel between the two. I've heard other people say that that gets kind of repetitive and boring for them, but for me it was just more of an intense foreshadowing, I guess. And I really enjoyed it as a writing device. I thought it made it fun. I thought it made it interesting because you could see the creepy things that were detailed in the book and then see similar things play out in real life as Maggie is doing all of these renovations. Overall, I thought the story was very intriguing. I was hooked from pretty much the very beginning. I was trying my best to figure out what was going on in this book the entire time I was reading it, and I definitely didn't guess it in the end, so that's something. Another thing about this book is that the main twists take a long time to come out. Literally the last twist in the book is within the last 20 pages, so keeps you on the edge of your seat till the end. And if you watch my reading vlog, you would have seen me cry at this book on camera, which is always a lovely way to start your YouTube journey, you know? Just second video, crying on camera. Fantastic. It wasn't even anything particularly sad that happened. And it made me tear up out of joy, I would say. I'm gonna call it joy. Maybe pride? I don't know. It got me emotional. It got me in my feels. Made me cry. It caught me off guard. So, because there were some plot points that I wasn't completely satisfied with how they were resolved, I couldn't give it a full 5 out of 5. So I landed on a 4.75 because it did emotionally impact me. I was creeped out. I did get chills while reading it. And I didn't fully guess the ending. So I had to rate it high, but because of the loose ends that weren't quite tied up in a satisfying way, I did dock it a little bit and left it at 4.75. Hopefully this video is not gonna be too long. I've been uploading almost 30-minute videos, and I swear I'm not trying to have long videos, but apparently I just talk a lot. So let's see if we can cut this down a little bit more. I think I'm already at like 27 minutes or something like that. Anyways. So the third book that I finished this month was Babel. This one has been going around the internet like nobody's business the last year, and I get why. It is so beautifully written. Like, she's a hefty book. I think it's almost 550 pages. It is a big book, and it is historical fiction / fantasy, which is an interesting combination that I truly wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy, but boy did I enjoy it. So Babel is set in the 1830s, and it takes place in an alt history fantasy type realm, I guess you would describe it. So in Babel world, in the reality of Babel, the British Empire, you know, it's the 1830s, the British Empire is like reaching their highest peak of power and whatnot. And the empire itself is pretty much entirely run by these magical silver bars. The way that the bars work is through linking languages. It has everything to do with entomology. That's the right word, right? Entomology? Where's my phone?
Entomology.
Nope, that's not the word I'm looking for.
Etymology.
Those are dangerously close together. You can forgive me for getting those two mixed up. Like, that's ridiculous. Etymology, right?
Etymology.
Yeah. Babel deals a lot with etymology and the roots of words and the connections between languages. So the way these silver bars work is the pair bonding of two different words that are from two different languages that have the same root word can create energy. They will pair bond words that mean speed or something like that. Take two words from two different languages that both derive from the same base language, such as Latin, and when you carve those words on these silver bars as a trained silver worker, they will pair them together on this silver bar and put them on things like railroad tracks, and that will then make the trains travel faster. I don't know if that's a great description, but we're gonna go with it. So these silver bars are essentially amping up, empowering the entire empire. They run everything from clocks to holding up buildings that would crumble without this magic, to healing people and keeping people alive. These silver bars are literally ingrained into the fabric of the British Empire. And Robin is brought over from China by a British professor when he is very young after his mother dies from cholera. He is essentially raised and bred to go to Oxford and become one of these silver workers. Pretty much as soon as the professor shows up, Robin is told that he needs to pick an English name because his Cantonese name is not going to cut it in England. I forget exactly why he picks Robin for his first name and he picks Swift as his last name because his favorite story is Gulliver's Travels. And that sold me, y'all. Like, I had such a soft spot in my heart for Robin from the get-go. He finally makes a group of friends once he gets to Oxford, and you really spend the first half of the book really getting to know Robin and his friends and seeing the abuse that they have to go through and seeing all of the racism that is hurled towards them because they are not white. He makes friends with the people in his cohort, which include a guy named Rami, who is from Calcutta, he's Indian, and a girl named Victoire, who is Haitian and she is black. And then the fourth member of their troupe is a girl named Letty, who is the only white girl in their group, and she is from Brighton. Babel itself is what the Translation Institute at Oxford is called in this story. And this is what it looks like. It's this big tower. And this is where all of the silver working happens for the entire British Empire. They've said that Cambridge has tried to build their own silver working institute like this, and it just hasn't worked. So all of this power is centralized within Oxford in Babel. As the story goes on, Robin starts to learn more about how the Empire uses these silver bars, and he essentially learns about imperialism and capitalism and how the system is inherently rigged against him and all of his friends, and that they will always be second-class citizens because of this. And there are several instances where Robin comes face to face with the inherent racism and the prejudice of Oxford itself being like the higher education institution, and also just within the Empire in general. I could go on and on about this book all day, but this book is just so beautifully written, and it reckons so well with the real atrocities of the British Empire in this time period and beyond. And it really shows how Robin has to reckon with his identity. He's essentially too English to fit in China anymore, and he's too Chinese to fit in to England. So he is really at a loss of where he fits in this world. And that's where his friendships come in, because they're all just out here trying to survive together, and they are beautiful friendships, and the way that they're written is gorgeous, and I loved reading about them. And the fact that we get to see and hear the story through Robin's eyes, who is not a violent person, he is not confrontational, and to read all of these things through his eyes, someone who really doesn't deserve the treatment that he gets, is just heartbreaking. Oh, it's so good. But yeah, if it wasn't obvious already, this was my first 5-star book of the year, and it 100% deserves it. Because I listened to this book through Audible, I really feel like I need to give it another read in its physical form so that I can truly mark up this book and have these fantastic quotes marked out. I cried like a little baby at the end of this, which you would have also seen if you watched my last reading vlog. So I'm gonna go ahead and link that so you can see me cry to both of the books that I've mentioned. So that was Babel. The next book that I finished in January was Ninth House. So this is another fantasy book, and it also takes place at a prestigious university. This one takes place at Yale. Ninth House is about our main character, whose name is Galaxy Stern, and in this fantasy realm that Ninth House takes place in, magic exists, and pretty much all supernatural beings having to do with like ghosts, the afterlife, all of that stuff all exist. And in this book at Yale, there are 8 landed societies. I'm not going to name them all because I don't remember them. And the 9th house in this book is called Leafy, which is the house that Galaxy Stern, also called Alex in the book, is part of. And Leafy's main job is to oversee the rites and rituals of all of the other 8 houses to ensure that they are following protocols and they are not breaking any rules and that rituals go according to plan. Alex is essentially an apprentice to an upperclassman named Daniel Arlington, who is also just called Darlington throughout the book. And he has disappeared and they're not sure exactly what happened to him. So Alex is on a mission to find out what happened to Darlington and how she can bring him back. And while she is on that journey, there is also a murder that takes place that she is investigating because she believes it is also connected to Darlington's disappearance and the landed societies of Yale that practice these rites and rituals. These rites and rituals can be anything from predicting changes in the stock market to healing people to shape-shifting and everything in between, essentially. Throughout this book, we get to learn more about Alex's checkered past, as well as how things transpired from Darlington's point of view up until he disappears, and follow along as Alex tries to figure out what the heck is going on with the murder and Darlington's disappearance and all of these landed societies that she's pretty sure are involved. So I'm not gonna lie, this book for me was a little slow to start. I think that might be partly because I was having a lot of work stress last week. I was very busy and not really all there mentally when I was listening to this book on my drives to and from work. So I think that that's why it took me a little bit longer to get into this book to start with. But once I was in, I was in, like I was invested. I was trying to figure out what was going on. I was trying to figure out where the heck Darlington was. I was trying to theorize, and let me tell you, I did not guess what was truly afoot at Yale University. This is very much a dark academia murder mystery, and then throw in like some magic and also maybe like some satanic rituals. And that's Ninth House. So I ended up rating this a 4.5 out of 5 stars because it was really good. I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't completely captivating the entire time, even though part of that was probably on me. And there are also some bits that I wasn't quite sold on, like some details in the book that I wasn't quite sold on. But yeah, so I gave this one a 4.5. The last book that I was able to finish in January, which I actually quite literally finished last night, which is why I'm recording this on February 1st, because I had to finish this book before I could include it, and that is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. This is another one that made some rounds over the last few years. And once again, I totally understand why. I thoroughly marked up these pages. I really wanted to physically read this book because I heard that the writing in this book was so beautiful that I really wanted to physically read it so that I could mark up and highlight all of the things that I loved about this book and all the things that made me sad, because this is a sad book. If you don't know, Hamnet is about the son of William Shakespeare who passed away from the plague in 1596, I believe, when he was around 11 years old. And that is not a spoiler because it literally says a novel of the plague. So we are essentially following Hamnet and his family as the plague takes hold in their house and he eventually passes away because of it. And then after that happens, we're following his family as they deal with the grief of losing this important family member in their lives. And I absolutely loved this book. I thought it was so good. I thought the writing in it was so beautiful. And even though this book is called Hamnet, it really centers around his family more than anything, and especially his mom, Agnes. And let me tell you, I love Agnes. I think Agnes is so cool. So Agnes is essentially a witchy woman. I would categorize Agnes as a green witch in this book, which essentially just means she likes to use herbs and plants and things like that from nature to cure ailments, to put around the house for good luck, to make different salves and soaps and tinctures and all of that stuff. She is always running around the woods, wading in riverbanks, picking flowers, gathering honeycomb, just a woman of the wild, and I love that. From the very beginning, I loved Agnes. I love that we got to spend so much time with her, and her grief as a mother is just so palpable and so intense. Losing a child is such a tragedy, and really getting this inside look of the grief of a mother and of a sister, of a husband, of a father, of all of these people that are around Hamnet is just very harrowing. And I don't know if you can even see, these are pretty light colored tabs, but all of the blue tabs are sad parts. And I almost ran out of blue tabs. That's how sad this book is. But it's so beautiful at the same time, and you really just feel for Agnes and Judith and the rest of the family, and they all process the grief in such different ways, and they don't always understand how each other are processing the grief. And it leads to some frustrations, some tensions. I thought I had gotten through the worst of the sad parts, but even the last lines of the book are just a gut punch, honestly. So this is a bit of a sad book, but it's a really good historical fiction. It's also not super long. The language in it is a bit flowery because, I mean, it's about Shakespeare's family, so you kind of gotta be a little flowery with the language to match the vibe. It was a beautiful book overall. So I ended up giving this book a 5 out of 5. My only real complaint when I finished reading this was I wanted more. Like, the way it ended, I just wanted more of it. I wanted to know what happened next. If that's my only complaint about this book, then I feel like it deserves a 5 out of 5. So those are the 5 books that I read in January of 2023. Not the strongest start to the year, but we still made progress, and that's what's important. That is all I have for you today, ladies and gents. I hope that you enjoyed this little January wrap up. If you want to see the reading vlog where I read the first 3 books in this video, I will be sure to link that down below, or maybe I'll put a card. You can find it somewhere. But yeah, other than that, I hope that you enjoyed today's video. I will see you guys next week, where I will be updating you on my February TBR, which, have no fear, I have already started. I have already started my first romance of, I almost said spooky season. Wow. Romance is a little spooky, let's be honest. Thank you guys so much for watching. I genuinely appreciate you hanging out with me and listening to me ramble about my books. If you liked this video, be sure to leave a like down below. If you want to see more of my booktube content, please hit subscribe. I upload at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Until next time, I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you next Saturday with a February TBR. All right, have a good day, guys. Bye.